Now, a lot of the times, I seemingly am missing some of my books. I don't know, I just walk up to my shelf and I'm like, oh, I wish I could reread that, and then the book isn't there. And then I remember, oh, right, I gave that to one of my friends. And then I think about it some more, and then I realized how long those books have been gone. Now, this video isn't supposed to be a diss track to any of my friends. I love you to death, and I really hope that you do one day read that book. But I do miss my babies, but that doesn't mean I want them back. But I thought that would make an interesting idea, because I just didn't hand these books out for nothing. There were certain reasons why I wanted my friends to have these books, so I thought I'd tell you about those reasons and why I thought the book was great, and if I would reread it, and what the book is about, you know, the drill. So let me introduce you to these books that have gone missing from my shelves, even though I'm pretty sure I know where all of them are. And at least I hope I do. Let's talk about them. The first book that has been missing for a while, not too sure how long, is Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jodorowsky. I really don't know how to pronounce his name. The book follows a romance between two boys in 1980s Poland. It's summer, it's very sweaty and sticky, and it's queer, of course. It's full of emotions, not necessarily sad emotions, but packed with emotions. And these two boys, they meet at a summer camp of sorts, and they fall in love, and it's quite hard and difficult at the camp, but it just gets even worse when they go back to the big city. And Poland at that time, of course, is its own conflict, and yeah, we just follow their love story and the struggles they face and the different types of worldviews they both have, and how that is a big struggle in their relationship. And if you couldn't tell by the setting this is based in, and the fact that this is about a queer story, it's not gonna turn out so good for them. I really like this book. I would say this is for fans of Call Me By Your Name, maybe even Tin Man, definitely In Memoriam. If this book is with the friend that I think it is with, that is also why I gave them the book, because they like queer literary fiction. That is the first book that is gone from my shelf, and I think I would actually want to not necessarily anytime soon, but I think I would want to reread this. It was really good, and I think I would like to remember more about this book other than what I just told you about. Now, the next book is a classic, and I do not know if I will be able to find a picture of it. Maybe I have one on my camera roll, because I tried to find this version online and it's nowhere to be found. And I got it secondhand, and it seemed pretty special, so maybe it's not such a well-known copy of this book, and it's a play collection from Oscar Wilde. I know exactly which friend has this, because they wanted to use it for a uni thing, and it's a collection, I think it's mostly only his plays, it's Oscar Wilde's, and it's just, I think it's a collection of his plays. This is, oh, you know, I haven't had it for a long time. I'm a big fan of Oscar Wilde, of course, and the one reason I know this book is missing from my shelf is because it's a big book. It's massive, it's like this thick, and I think it's a pretty big format as well, and it's just like I said, it's a collection, of course, and I have a huge classics collection, and whenever I redecorate them, I'm like, there's something really big missing, and then I always remember that that's the book that is missing. I know for a fact that it is plays, because I've read the Salome play in this, and it might also have some other prose and writings of his, I'm not too sure, but for now I shall be fine not having this, because I have a lot of Oscar's books, but I do am missing it, at least for its decorative part in my shelving. Next book, same friend. Same story. Lended this from me for uni, and then decided to actually read it, and my friend actually is reading this, so I really do want her to finish this, but I still am waiting. The book I'm talking about is Camilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, and this is one of my favorites. If you should know anything about me, is that I love vampire books, and Camilla is of course the vampire book, and I also have the most beautiful hardback copy of it, so it's really missing my shelf. And I'm of course sitting in front of my beloved vampire shelf, and right above me is the designated space for vampire books, and Camilla is really missing because this is the black and red themed shelf, and Camilla is black and red. Camilla is a vampire story, of course. It predates Dracula by 20 years, I think, so it's literally the vampire story. And it's also sapphic. Well, no, it is sapphic. You can't tell me anything. Camilla follows Laura, who her and her dad live on this big, giant, wonderful gothic mansion thing. I don't know. And they take in this girl who is in a road accident, and they take her in. And all of a sudden, in their village, a lot of people start dying or getting the flu or getting like mentally ill. Laura is also inflicted by these nightmares that she used to have as a child, and now they're back. And you can guess who is in her nightmares. None other than Camilla. It's just a really brilliant tale, and it's a really short book. So again, shouldn't take that long to read. It's a brilliant book. I really love Camilla a lot, and this one I actually do want to reread. There were like 2 or 3 times in this past colder months in which I was like, I want to read Camilla, and I didn't have it. I literally almost bought it because I forgot that I had a physical copy of this. So she's being missed, but I do want that friend to read it. So I'm always torn. Do I want to just take all my books back? No, I don't. But do I miss them on my shelves? Yes, I do, but I shall be patient. Now, the next book I don't necessarily want back for any reason other than having it on my shelf, especially concerning that I like to call myself a book content creator, of course, because I have my YouTube channel and I also post quite frequently on TikTok. There's a lot of instances in which I wanted to grab a book to film something with, and then I remembered, oh, I don't have that right now. It happens to me with books that I didn't read physically, only digitally, but also happens to me with the books that I lended to friends. The book that I'm talking about right now is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, and My Dark Vanessa is a really intense and complex but very important story to tell. I think there's been quite a few times where I wanted to talk about the book, especially when I read Lolita, because the main character in My Dark Vanessa also reads Lolita, and so I kind of wanted to grab that and read some pieces back, but I couldn't, which isn't too bad because that book was really heavy, and I also read it at an interesting time. I read this on summer vacation on the first day, so I was like mentally in a good place after reading that. My Dark Vanessa follows a 15-year-old girl called Vanessa, of course, who falls in love with her teacher. And while all of that is happening, he also recommends her to read Lolita, and it's a really complex story, to say the least. She doesn't really realize in what kind of situation she's in. Of course, there's an immense power dynamic difference and age gap and predator and pedophilia. I don't know if I can say that word on the internet. But it's obviously not a good situation to be in, but Vanessa doesn't realize that, as many victims sadly do. And it switches between when it was happening and also to Vanessa as an adult reflecting back on that time. And sadly, Vanessa still doesn't... She realizes it to some extent, but not fully, how bad the situation she was in as a teenager. And she keeps on trying to get back with said teacher. And the story unfolds when a lot of other victims come out and speak out about it, and the whole Me Too movement. And it's a really, 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 really important story. For fans of the concept of Lolita, I think this is a really important read, because this is the point of view from the victim. So that's really important, and I think it just handles the topic with a lot of care, especially with the way that understands the victim's position. And you could really tell that the author researched a lot and, well, sadly knows a lot about this topic from her own personal experiences. Now, the next book is also a classic, and it's a book I hope we all know and love, and it's Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott. And there have been multiple situations in which this friend wanted to give this back to me, and we just always forgot. And so this is my own fault as well as my friends. I really love Little Women, especially the movies, of course, but also the book. And just like with Oscar Wilde, it's just missing in my classic shelf, and especially because it's such a classic, there have been multiple times where like bring book recommendations, female relationship recommendations. You know, I wanted to grab this book and show it, but I couldn't, which is fine because I know a lot of people know, but I do think it's a brilliant classic to get into classics, if that makes sense. If you don't know anything about Little Women follows 4 sisters, the March sisters, Meg, Jo, Amy, and Beth, and it is set in Civil War, New England, I think. Yeah, and it follows their sister relationship with one another, their family's relationship, their family's place in society, the female place in society. And I think especially for girls or female presenting people out there, it's a really important story, especially because I think you could find yourself in little ways in all of the sisters. There's like this whole thing of which March sister are you, but I think the brilliant part about this story is that you could find a little piece of yourself in each one of them, and I think that's what makes the story so great, and especially how it still stands and holds in today's history and society, which is just incredible work from Louisa May Alcott, and it's a really touching story. Now we have 3 more books left, and these 3 books are all being held hostage by the same friend. But the next one I actually really want my friend to read. So basically you could take this video as, well, I don't know which one of my friends watches my videos. That's none of my business, I do not want to know. But that friend, I'm just letting my friends know, you should really read those books. No. The next book is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Especially considering that there's a new Ocean Vuong book coming out. My friend really needs to read this because it's just that good. And it's so short and so sweet, but so goddamn heartbreaking. It's queer literary fiction, and Ocean Vuong is, I'd like to say, one of our best writers at the moment. Even if you just read his poetry, he just has a way with words. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, his main character, it's Vietnamese, and it's being told... Is that a spoiler? No, okay, it's not a spoiler. It's being told in the form of a letter from the main character to his mother, who cannot and will not ever read this letter. And in that letter, he just basically tells his view on his growing up and life and what he's learned about Vietnamese history throughout time, and then also dealing with being gay and Vietnamese in America, and growing up with only his mother and his grandmother. And it's a really in-depth dive on growing up Vietnamese and queer, and Ocean Vuong just did that brilliantly. It really tore on my heartstrings, and I cried a bunch reading this, and I probably underlined at some points the whole page, just because his writing is that beautiful. I think really important also the discussion on telling your mom these type of things, even if you won't ever read them, but just to try and heal that relationship. If that's like, these are the times that you wronged me, but I forgive you, but not having to tell that to the other person, but also wanting the other person to hear that. No, it's a really difficult situation to be in, but I think Ocean Vuong did it beautifully, and the focus on the mother-son relationship, I think, could be relatable for a lot of readers if you haven't read it yet. And I have a very special spot reserved for it on my queer literary fiction shelf, which it's missing from. I feel like I didn't really explain that plot all too well, but just read it for yourself. Now the next 2 books kind of go hand in hand, but can very much so be read as a standalone novel. I'll tell you about the one that came out first and that I read first, which is Water by John Boyne. And I hadn't ever read anything by John Boyne. I just really randomly picked this up because I liked the water on the cover and because I was in Dublin and wanted to pick up some Irish literature. And this was portrayed very big on the shelf, and I had like 5 minutes to grab a book and leave the bookstore because it was closing, and I was stressed and I picked this out and I ended up really liking it. I will try my best to explain what this book is about. I have a very shitty memory, so I might butcher it, but Water follows this woman who moves to this remote island in Ireland, yeah, and she changes her name, changes her whole story and just tries to get away and have a quiet, remote island experience. And while all of that is happening, she meets all of these locals and they tell their stories, and she's very observant and listens and hears a lot of stories. While all of that is happening, we learn a lot about her own life through her getting to know those other people. It's a really interesting read. That is what Water is about. And then the next book that I read from John Boyne was Earth. And Earth basically follows one of the people that she meets on this island, but there's really no need to read Water if you want to read Earth. And I was really excited for Earth because it follows a queer boy who left the island, so it's very much the exact opposite of what the woman did. We just follow his story and the way he deals with being gay on this very small island and then moving to a big city and falling in and out of very complex and intense relationships, and that's basically what happens in Earth. I surprisingly liked Water more than Earth, but maybe I should reread Earth, I'm not too sure. And I also wanted to read reviews. I just remembered maybe I should do that. It's been a while since I read the book, and the third one also just came out, and it's called Fire. Don't know whose stories followed in that one. I do want to find out and read all of the elements coming out, because of course Air is also coming out, or maybe it's already out, I don't know. Focused on not a big story, it's just these small and intimate people that we're following as if we were one of their friends. And I thought it was really interesting, and also the way that John Boyne also dealt with a lot of other issues and discussed them in the books, such as justice, homophobia, womanhood, many things. Yeah, I think it's interesting to read, and they're also not big at all, so those are 2 books. I also am missing them from my shelves because I don't think there's different sorts of copies of these. They had this beautiful white spine with the title Water or Earth printed in the Elements visuals, and they look so nicely together, and that's mainly why I want the other 2 books as well, and obviously to read them, but that's not so important as the visuals. So I think just the plain white would look so gorgeous on my shelves, but I don't have them. And those are all the books. I am for some reason really sure about the fact that I'm missing a book, and I do not know which book or who I gave it to, and maybe I lost it. I'm not too sure, and maybe I'm also just making this up. I don't know. Maybe you can get some recommendations out of these, because these are all books that I recommended to my friends. And you might have the same taste as me or find any of these interesting, and please let me know if you did find any of them interesting, and if there are any specific books that you've lended to people and haven't gotten back yet. If any of my friends watched this and made it to this part, please read the goddamn book, for your own good and for my well-being. Please let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of the books, because I am really open to having discussions about any of these. I love discussing books with other people, and see you in the next one.